practices. Worked with animal services from my very beginning, and so really excited to join y'all, and I know I have a lot to learn.
Fantastic. Peter, it's the first of the year. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, hi everyone. My name is Peter Agavi. I represent John Water City Council of John Water City. Oh man, it's gonna be a long evening.
I guess I was Zoom centric. I apologize for those of you in the room. Why don't you kick it off, Sarah, for introductions?
Absolutely. I am Sarah Hawk, Executive Director of Joint Animal Services.
Joe McGugan, Feline Friends.
Gary Edwards, I'm brand new. I'm a county commissioner over in District 2. Thank you. Glad
Welcome,
to be
Gary. Welcome.
here. Thank you, Lisa.
Ed Kunkel, council member for City of Lacey.
Shannon Kelly Fong, I'm the Assistant City Manager at the City of Lacey.
All right, this is fantastic. I am going to call for an approval of the agenda, just as long as everybody notes that in the packet, the budget amendment comes after the information on a veterinarian that wants the appointment, just so you understand in the packet. But the agenda will be as follows. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Second.
Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. In that we're going to approve. Well, no, we're gonna go to election of officers. I almost went to the public comment first. How do we want to do that, Shannon?
Chairperson, I just want to point out that with the approval of the agenda was also the approval of the agenda, the previous meeting minutes and the other consent items.
Thank you.
This is a change here on Joint Animal Service Commission. In the past, we've done an approval of each item, and just to kind of streamline the meeting, we have put all of the more consent items together.
That's why I was all messed up. I'm like, we're going to go to approve the consent. Okay, elections of officers. How do you suggest, Shannon, that we go about this?
So, Commissioner, I would recommend that you go for a motion for someone to be the chair and proceed with that motion through the entirety of the motion, and then move on to vice chair once a chair has been selected.
Okay. All righty, I'm opening the nominations for chair.
I nominate Peter.
I got my hands full.
Well, we all got our hands full.
Oh, mine are overflowing.
I think
I have
Lisa's
a
done a
day job.
good job so far, and I'd nominate Lisa. But I don't know.
I second that.
I don't know the protocol here. If we stay for a year or 2 years, what? I'm all brand new. Just so all of you do know that at the county, there's 3 in our legislative body, and that makes it so that no 2 of us can ever talk prior to an event that's on the agenda, been posted. And so I'm coming into this cold. I did not have a opportunity to visit at all with Commissioner Mejia, only because those restrictions are in place. Not that we don't talk, we can't. So I don't know what I didn't ask anybody how they do it.
You did just fine, Gary.
I thought
You did just fine.
Yes.
Beginning of the meeting.
I'll second Lisa's nomination.
Okay.
Just really quickly, for the process, I think was the question. Every year there is an election during the first meeting to determine the chair and the vice chair for JASCOM meetings. And I heard a recommendation for Lisa. If we could get a motion for Lisa, we could get the second.
Yep, I just did.
I made the motion, and I think Ed gave us a second on that motion.
Yep.
Love it.
Are there any other nominations?
I
Okay,
say call the
we're-
vote.
Yes, call the vote. Thank you, Peter. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. It's always odd to do that when you're the person people are voting for. Okay, nominations for vice chair, please. Ed, would you like to do it? Or Peter?
I respectfully decline. I'm too
Come
busy
on,
like
Ed.
Peter.
No, come on, Ed. I think I nominate Ed.
I respectfully decline.
Uh-oh, Peter.
Well, sure.
That's overwhelming. Oh my gosh, my hair's blowing back. Okay, Peter, if you're sure, we'll go forward for a second.
Second.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll do the second. Can you do that, Ed? I don't know.
I don't know.
That sounded like a train coming to me.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor, oh wait, I should ask, is there any other nominations? All right, hearing none. All those in favor is Peter Agabi as vice chair of the Joint Animal Service Commission. Please say aye.
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 Congratulations,
Excellent.
Peter.
And they did that, you were still tuned in. You weren't even off somewhere. Okay, do we have any public comments online or in person?
We have not received any public comment.
All right. We're going to move right on to the director's report. Okay, take it away, Sarah.
Excellent. Give me one moment to share my screen. We are going to start with a review of the year. And so every year, for those who are new, we like to do 2022, like the year previously in review, just to give everybody some statistical updates about how the previous year went. And so I apologize, some of the numbers are a little dry, but I do promise I will go through this as quickly as I can. So intake this year, we were just slightly higher than last year. We have stayed pretty static since the beginning of the pandemic, when we dropped from 4,677 down to about 2,500 this year. We totaled out at 2,624 in intake numbers. That includes dogs, cats, wildlife, other animals, various from livestock, pocket pets, rabbits, snakes, you name it. Positive outcomes. Again, we are maintaining pretty static, although we haven't had an excellent year in positive outcomes. You can see we had an increase of a little bit over 100 over last year, with the majority being in adoptions, owner returns, and then transfer. And we had a really great year with our transfer partners, with an increase from 173 to 250. They have not returned to pre-pandemic numbers, but I don't suspect that our transfer partnership numbers will get back to that same number of animals again. And that's just been statistically shown, not just with us, but statewide as well as nationally. Transfer numbers among organizations are lower. Negative outcomes. Now, we don't always like to talk about this, but it is something that we should bring up. Our negative outcomes, which are our euthanasia. So we did have less euthanasia this year. You can see not a whole lot, but what I do want to point out, the majority of our euthanasias are cats, which is one of the reasons why we started our community cat program last year. But the other way I like to break this out is in shelter versus an owner requested euthanasia. So year over year, our shelter euthanasias have decreased, while our owner requested euthanasias have increased. And so last year and the year before, we, last year we were at 53% of our total euthanasia was actually owner requested. And this year it got bumped up to 67% of our euthanasia was actually owner requested.
So for owner requested euthanasia, how frequent is that when it's a dog is aging badly or has?
It's a mixture.
Okay.
It can be at the request of the family due to severe aggression.
Okay.
The majority of the time is the animal, they either do not have a regular veterinarian, they cannot afford to go to the veterinarian, or they cannot get in a timely manner.
And there's something wrong with the dog.
Correct. We do a complete evaluation. This is not something that we take always at the behest of the owner. There's been several times that we have said we will not be euthanizing an animal, that we could turn it into an owner surrender, or they would be directed to their veterinary clinic to talk with their veterinarian about their reasoning. So these are animals that across the board, after an evaluation, were absolutely deemed necessary.
Oh, okay.
Some different way to look at our statistics. So across the board, I did not do a comparison, and I'm sorry, but we're actually up across the board in our live release rate. So we were really successful. Last year, we were in the 80s in our adjusted live release rate. And so this year we're actually in the 90s, which is fantastic. To be considered no kill, you have to have a 90% live release rate or higher. And so the difference here where we have live release rate versus adjusted live release rate is the first considers the owner requested euthanasias in with that number versus removing the owner requested euthanasias out of that number. And so that's why we show the different percentages so that you can see the difference that the number of owners requesting that and performed in shelter affects our percentage rates that we report out. So we like to show that just to give everybody a visual of that difference.
Sarah, is it possible for us to keep track a little more? I know it's data and I know, but we have a new computer system. Why there's this increase in owner requested euthanasia is, just sort of a reflection of the environment for the veterinary profession or finances. It would be interesting to see that. I know that's geeking out, but.
I would have to look at our system. If we could go that detailed, I could tell you whether or not health-wise, they're given a status within the system from the Asilomar Accord. So they're either healthy, treatable, healthy, manageable, or unhealthy, untreatable. And so that is tracked within the system in itself, but we don't necessarily track right now whether it's money or veterinary access, but I can talk to Andrew to see if there's a way we can track that.
It'd be interesting for 2023 if we could.
All right.
Sarah, in follow-up to a comment you'd made about being considered a no-kill shelter, is that overall for all animals, or do they actually break it down, how you have it broken down by cats, dogs, and other animals?
It's for total, but they don't include anything other than dogs and cats in that number. So nationally, when you're looking at overall statistics, they will only look at dogs and cats in that number, but it's usually total overall.
Does it have to be for a period of time, like a couple of years, or does 1 year qualify you to start using that? And what's the benefit of that?
It could qualify us as long as every single month we are also maintaining that average. And some do dip when you're close and you're really working towards the 1 month, like let's say in the summer when it's kitten season is upon us and we're inundated with neonates that have a low level of survival. You might see some shelters drop in that percentage during that time. But it's usually an overall for the year total number is what counts. And so and it also depends on how you look at it when you're claiming that. So currently, Best Friends Animal Society, for example, counts all owner requested euthanasias as part of your number. So with that, we don't have that status. Once we are able to have a veterinarian and we have our shelter clinic, we can actually, instead of intaking them into our system, they actually get within the data points, they get pushed to the clinic. And then that'll change our statistics. And then technically Best Friends would recognize us as a no-kill animal shelter. And it is something, it's a mixed bag though, of whether or not it's good to really push that or not. Some would argue that pushing that means that we're putting public safety at a risk because we're, adopting out animals that we would consider a risk, which we don't ever do that. So there's pros and cons to that. There's also, people have a tendency to be complacent once they know that their shelter is a no-kill shelter, that it's really easy for it to be the shelter's responsibility and not the community's responsibility to help ensure to maintain what I call a no-kill community rather than a no-kill shelter. Because it takes a village to maintain that status. It's not something that we can just do ourselves. It has to be a community effort.
Lisa,
Yes.
I don't know do I just raise my hand? Would you see it or?
Yeah, that's why I was saying you didn't get to hear after a little project I'm working on in Olympia gets done in April. I'm going to try to be in room more often, but my Mondays get kind of jammed.
I don't want to interrupt anybody. I don't want to get it right.
Yeah,
So-
raise your hand and I keep writing notes. Sorry.
Okay, that's fine.
Or just
Okay.
speak up.
Well, sometimes that can be rude and I try not to be. Anyway.
I know you're a very nice person.
For clarification, I'm just wondering, out of my personal experience, my grandson had to put his lab down, I think about 3 months ago, and it was almost 15 years old. So from a veterinary position, they probably realize that that's getting up there for a lab. But he went to the veterinarian and where obviously he's been before and paid the fee. I don't know what that fee was. I didn't even ask him about it. I know he came back brokenhearted. That's all I know. So, but what I'm wondering about here is this is kind of the I don't know, the hard guy or something on gifting of public funds, when it comes to doing these instead of, we're taking business away from a veterinarian possibly, but we're also probably making an animal's life end a heck of a lot better. So you could look at it several different ways. So has that ever been discussed on?
I would not look at it as a gifting of public funds. We charge a fee. We have a.
Oh,
set
you
fee.
do? Okay, well,
This is not
that'll
something
simplify it.
that's done for free. We have a set fee.
Okay.
And depending on what the owner would like to do, there are different fees. And I would, the same argument that I have always made is we're not taking any business from the veterinary clinics. These are people who cannot afford to go. Our fees are lower. But it's also, you have to be by appointment. We have to see that there is a need, but, right now in the veterinary industry, everybody's booked out. And when you have clients, and I know Lisa and Mike, can attest to this, when you have clients, you do your best to fit them in, especially ones that are, in need of having to perform such a delicate thing. But sometimes it's not always the case. And even if you can, sometimes it's not within your means to afford what the veterinary clinic charges. And so it's a good in between and a reasonable option for those who would still like to say goodbye.
Yeah, no, I'm not squawking or anything.
Oh, no.
I'm just wondering, he had a good job. He said he has a very good job, so he can afford it.
Sarah, do you want to touch a little bit on a future exercise that JASCOM will be doing regarding fees as well?
Yes, we're actually in the process of reviewing all of our fees across the board. It's been several years since we've increased any of our fees. And so currently we're looking at all the agencies in our area and what they are charging. And once we have assessed where we fit amongst that, we will be bringing to JASCOM the recommended fee changes for you to approve. All right. Field response. So this is our animal control officers going out and responding to calls. In 2021, we went to, no, I'm sorry, in 2022, we went to full service. And so with the county, so we changed from modified services to full services with the county. Again, you can see things are pretty static across the board from last year. We do have a dip in Lacey calls as well as a dip in Olympia calls. We did have an increase in Thurston County calls, which is expected. And we continue to do that. We are, just as an update on our end, we still are in the process of hiring several officers. So we're currently operating on 2 animal control officers when we should have 5 plus a supervisor. We have made offers to 1, are in the process of making offers to 2 others most likely, and are interviewing for the final position. So we should be fully staffed. I am hoping by April at the latest. It is quite a process to hire animal control officers. We have to go through the same background as law enforcement.
Yeah.
2022 accomplishments. So we completed the medical suite that we will use to do medical in-house. Joe's really happy. We completed the first stage of the capital facilities plan. For those of you, and I'll review this again at a later time, the capital facilities plan came back and animal services had the 2nd worst building within the city of Lacey, only second to the police station. And so we will be doing an RFP to work with another agency to look at what building a new facility would look like, 1. And then the second part of that is the makers who did our capital facilities plan is going to come back to JASCOM most likely in May with some stopgap solutions that should get us through the next couple of years until a new building can be built. Because we're at that point in the building where it will not be many more years that we can sustainably be there. We completed the salary survey and implemented those recommended changes. That was a fantastic survey done through the city of Lacey for all non-represented employees. There were definitely some areas where we were not being competitive in our wages, especially in our frontline staff. So I'm happy to say that we were able to make those adjustments. We piloted our new community cat program, which addresses free roaming cats. We also recommended ordinance changes to support those community cat program initiatives. We expanded our language access onto our website as well as within our programming. And we doubled the number of community events over last year. Any questions?
A lot, Sarah. That's excellent. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. Is the community cat program, is that a trap, neuter, release program, or is it something different?
No, it works a lot like a trap, neuter, vaccinate, release, except it's a more holistic approach where we are not only working with volunteers and other groups that are doing TNR, but we're also working in the shelter itself. Once our medical suite is up and running, we can perform spay neuter surgeries for cats that are taken in through the shelter and released back to field that way, as well as our animal control officers looking for solutions within the community when they have identified that there is a cat colony that perhaps needs to be addressed through spay neuter and vaccination.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I think maybe it's splitting hairs, but we also got all the jurisdictions to change our language in our ordinances, which is, you know, no small thing to make the community cat program actually go forward. Maybe I'm too much in government now to know that's actually a pretty good lift. Anything else, Sarah? Any questions from anyone at the table in the city hall?
No questions from me.
Okay, we're going to move on to the business items, which require action. The first is going to be
Lisa?
yeah.
We technically have the director's report as well.
Oh, okay, director's report. I'm jumping all over. Go for it, Sarah. I'm sorry.
You're okay. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's I would like to blame the new agenda, but you know, it's all on me.
Yeah. All right, so one quick share. The staff, in particularly our customer service specialist, Joseph, got really creative this February and created Tinder profiles for all of our harder to place dogs. And so we are doing promotions to swipe right on a few of our dogs. And so I shared a couple. For example, Teddy the Jock. He will always be your gym buddy and loves to do cardio every day. And so let's get swole together. He is a meathead, exuberant, chew toy king, and athletic. So we've been sharing these on social media, as well as Joseph made the right size images and has updated all of our adoption profiles. So when you go to our website, you actually see the framing and everything. So it's really, really cute. We've had a couple of takers on some harder to adopt dogs already. So Hogs and Hounds is coming up February 25th. So we will be participating for the second year in a row. This event is hosted by the Harley-Davidson dealership in Lacey, Northwest Harley-Davidson. Last year, we adopted out 5 dogs. This year, we plan to bring dogs, and they're also going to be doing a fundraiser for us this year as well. So we're very excited to be participating again. Community cats jurisdictions have passed recommended language changes to support our program. Medical suite, there's some pictures for you. We have the surgery table. We also have the wet table, which is also works as a prep table or a place that we can do dentals. And then the exterior of the building. So a big thank you to the ASPCA Northern Tier Shelter Initiative, as well as the Dulciani Halloran Foundation for contributing the majority of the funds to build this suite. And we are continuing to work with Human Resources to get the veterinary job posted for recruitment. Now we can move on to business items.
I'm glad we paused for that, especially the tender. Is it something you actually do on the Facebook or you go on your phone?
It's just on Facebook. We are sharing the photos on Facebook.
I love it. That's fantastic. So I'm glad we didn't skip over that, to be honest. Okay, the calendars. Sorry about that, Sarah, again. The dates for the meeting has traditionally been on Mondays. Is everybody still good with Mondays at 5:30, the first Monday?
Yep.
I am.
Okay, Gary's okay. Ed, are you okay with that?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm assuming Shannon and Sarah, you're okay. Okay, do you need a formal action on this?
No, it was just to reaffirm that now that we have, we're at our first meeting with new members, that Monday still works. I can send out the schedule in a separate email just so everybody has it, because there are a couple of dates that it's not falling on the first Monday for holidays, elections, things like that. We moved them off. So I can send that out tomorrow as follow-up.
Okay, fantastic. I'm assuming on the next, what?
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, one addition to the listing that Sarah provided in the packet is just to be mindful that December 4th is noted as the Joint Animal Services budget hearing. It's also anticipated to be the budget adoption as well.
Thank
Which
you.
means that we need a quorum to pass the budget that day.
In particular of the electeds.
Correct.
Yes. All right. Thank you, Shannon. That was actually a good point out, the budget thing. Okay, Sarah, I'm assuming you're going to want to present on the budget amendment about the building.
Yes. So for those of you in your packet, we do have a staff report that goes into. Oh, she put it to the budget amendment first.
Oh, it was in the agenda that way. Was I supposed to go to Vicky first?
No, you're fine. I put it wrong in the packet. I thought I was following it correctly and it's out of order. It's my bad. Sorry. We had City of Lacey worked to have a plumber come out and scope our entire plumbing. Because we've continually have had issues longer than I've been here, but they have been getting more and more severe over the last couple of years. Last year, we replaced a huge chunk of the pipe, thought that was going to fix the issue, and unfortunately didn't. And so what is being recommended is that we complete the plumbing from where we started out through to the street to streamline where the buildup continues to happen. The key to this is though, this is a large fix, this is an expensive fix, but it will not actually completely fix the plumbing issue. The plumbing issue
Wow.
is that we have piping that's cast iron
Right.
from 1970 that is slowly corroding away because of time, as well as chemicals, as well as fecal matter going down the drains. So unless we want to spend the money to fix all of the plumbing, which I don't know if that's really the best use of our funds, seeing as how hopefully in the next few years we will be moving to a new building. I would much rather fix the main issue, which would be going out to the street to stop the main clog point. But I just wanted to be very transparent with you guys that this fix is a stopgap. It's like the bare minimum we need to do to keep functioning in the building now. But again, this is a larger issue of this building slowly failing, or I should say quickly failing at this point.
Can I ask, so it may be a few years before we have a new facility and we still have to have day-to-day operations in the current building. What would be the cost of just biting the bullet? And because are we going to demo the existing building when the new one is finished? Is that the plan?
Yes, there would be the idea, and of course with the RFP, the architects would come back, but already the recommendation from makers who are not the architects are recommending that we do not stay in that building.
No.
There's no way to renovate it.
Okay.
So even if we did decide hypothetically to stay in that building, we would still have to pull up all the flooring and redo it because we cannot operate with cast iron plumbing. It would all need to be replaced.
Tough one.
It is,
Yeah.
it is.
What is,
Gary.
do we have an estimate amount of,
I could ask for one, but I have a feeling if the $100,000 that we're recommending for this small fix is just from where the lobby is to the street, that replacing all the plumbing in the building is going to be a lot more. Like my official assessment, it's going to be a lot more.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you also have the impact of operations. When you're replacing all of the piping, that's gonna cause.
We would
pretty
literally
significant
have to do it in
disruption.
pieces,
Mhm.
which then will also increase your cost because you're
Mhm.
only doing it in
Right.
pieces. Currently, what we're opting to do, so long as the timing works out, is to literally get it done in one,
one fell swoop?
and us be shut down for a week, doing operations out of different areas, staying out of the lobby.
Hmm.
Not doing adoptions, doing intake through animal control.
Mhm.
And kind of altering stuff for that way again, because if we do it in pieces, we're disrupting operations for months.
Right.
And the other issue becomes, and why it's so important that we get moving on this, is come April,
Mhm.
we can't do anything because it's our busy season.
Right. Ooh.
Gary had his hand up, and then I have a question.
What's the size of the property that the facility is on?
The facility sits on 5 acres. And the building itself is 8,000 square feet.
Is there any reason that it couldn't be figured out somehow that you could stay on the same property, stay in the same facility while the new facility is built,
Mhm.
and possibly put a line in place now that would solve that problem that you could tap into when you do your new facility?
So that's part of what Makers is going to come back with some kind of stopgap solutions in the meantime to kind of help. So if that's, us adding some additional like modular buildings to help us get through. And then the second RFP for the architect will actually help us figure that out. Like, what do those logistics look like and what does the cost and what the best solution is? So we're about 6 months out from hearing what Makers is going to propose as some changes we can make now to help. And most likely hearing the results of the architect will not be till the end of this year. So regardless, we still have to probably do this plumbing piece now.
How about Roto-Rootery?
Hmm.
We're already having the city come out and flush the system every single month.
But do they actually send a grinder down the line to open the pipe up?
It's completely flushed. The problem is it's eroding away.
Mhm.
And it's also catching everything. So we now flush the system every month as part of just standard operating procedures to function.
Gosh.
Some of the municipalities use a tank now that's a 1 or 2 chambered tank. And then they do have to pump solids on occasion. But it's all liquid going out to the main line. So.
We could do that as a stopgap, but we need to be careful that that's not in the long-term plan for Lot. The water treatment plant would prefer to have us hooked up to the sewer in the long run. Just to let you know, another hat I wear for the city is serving on the Lot board.
And whatever solution that we have, since our building is in the city of Olympia, we have to abide by City of Olympia code as well.
Okay, maybe just if there's 5 acres there, has there been any thought of, do we need that 5 acres, first of all? Well, we always need 5 acres. Is there any other businesses that might be willing to lease property or do anything that we might be able to offset the cost to the taxpayers? That's just a quick question.
I appreciate that. This funding isn't going to be at the cost of taxpayer dollar. This funding is coming from our capital reserves. So this isn't an additional cost that we're putting on the taxpayers this year. This is coming from our actual reserves that we have set aside. We do have a business, to your question, we actually do have a coffee shop on site already. But again, we are actually using what is usable of that acreage. We are right next to wetlands. And we also butt up against some hill and some trail that would need to be carved out. And so the idea would be that most likely we would max out that entire 5 acres with a new building, or the architects will come back and say we actually need larger acreage in order to expand.
Okay, I got a lot to learn. I'll try not to ask too many questions.
Oh, Gary, these are good questions. Please.
It's okay, and some
Good
of this stuff we'll go over when you and I meet for our orientation
Okay.
too later this month. So it's all good. I love questions. You're fine.
There's no bad questions, Gary. And Peter has his hand up.
I don't know if we ever disclose how many years we are going to continue to operate at this old building and when we move to the new building. I ask the question because if we are going to be at this old building for the next, I don't know, 3 or 4 years or 5 years, that is soon enough to continue to do harder fixing instead of just spending $100,000 can go to having more animals and having more staff when we're having a building. And if we don't have to spend that now, and if we can continue to flood and do all that stuff, because we're not going to be there for more than 5 years, I think we should be going looking at that as a fix. Or am I wrong?
So can I summarize what you just said, Peter,
Yes.
just so I make sure I understand? That you're worried that because we're going to be having to make a decision about a building within the next 5 years or complete one, your question is about spending the 100,000 now. Is that what you're asking about?
Keep in mind that we are going to be spending more than that when all that stuff are discovered.
Sarah, I don't know how bad this is, so I'm gonna have to, because once a month flushing and everything, I don't know if that's good enough. That's my question.
Yeah, I'll let Shannon go first and then.
Yeah, so Chair Parsley, I know the city of Lacey's crew has gone out there and we've taken a really thorough look at the plumbing system. And they have determined that the best recommendation at this point would to move forward with replacing this segment of the plumbing for the time being, hoping that it can be a successful stopgap. Now, obviously, we've been here before. We've said that before. We don't have divinations powers. We don't know if it's going to be good. But we are going out there on a really frequent basis to flush it, and flushing it for the next 5 years is not conducive for our maintenance and operations team. So at this point in time, we are recommending that this segment be replaced in the building as we continue to evaluate, what the short, as Sarah mentioned, with the makers, what opportunities might be in the short term. And then also what the opportunities are going to be as we look to build a new facility in the next couple of years.
And, please keep in mind that what the plumbing, when it does not work, it's just not a matter of like a toilet not working. It's a matter of sewage backing up and flooding the building. So staff, volunteers, and animals literally have to deal with the fact that sewage floods into the building. So if spending the $100,000 prevents that, along with flushing the system on our regular maintenance to get us where we need to go, then that is the recommendation I'm going to be making from a safety, from an LNI, from an OSHA, from a long list of reasons why we should be doing it.
Gary, before I wanted to ask one question about the health of our capital reserve. And because, you know, that we're restricted on how we can spend that money, this seems like a good thing. How much is left after if we approve this?
Quite a bit. I would need to get back to you on the exact number.
Okay, quite a bit is okay. That's a good to get back, but that's good enough for me. Gary, I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No, that's fine. Have we had a couple of bids already on this? And that's the 100 is the lowest bid?
Correct.
And when did we get that bid?
Last week.
Oh, we did last week. Okay. Well,
You will still have to flush it every month with that replaced.
Hopefully not every month, but the regular flushing will need to happen because
It goes through the entire building.
it's the cast iron that's eroding. It's literally catching
Right.
every single thing. So the only place that's currently not catching is the new pipe that we put in.
Now, this building is a lot like our corrections courthouse building in Olympia. Literally held together by duct tape at points. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? I mean, this is a lot of money. I think we've already spent 40. This will be 150 potentially. But it's a good testament to why we are looking at what do we need to do in the future for this building.
So do we need to call a vote for that?
We
Yep,
do.
we do.
have
It's a
to
budget
have,
amendment.
Yep, we have to do a budget amendment.
So can I get a motion on a budget amendment for a bid between $90,000 and $150,000?
No, it's just for 115.
Just for 115? You just wanted straight 115? Okay.
So moved.
Second,
I need more discussion. Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Okay. Looks like we have a budget amendment. And when will the work get started, Sarah?
Hopefully as soon as possible, because like I said, we have to be complete by April for when we is busy season. So I'm hoping March at the very latest that everything. will be-
Stress them that you need to be done no later than March.
Well, thankfully, Brett and Ashley are helping us with everything and they understand the needs going on.
So should we have conditioned our approval on the notion that if the costs were to exceed what was approved, what do we do?
It would honestly, it would depend on how much more, because you guys have already approved a budget that allows for some capital improvements and expenses to happen. So it really, it depends. If it's much, much larger, we would come back and do one more budget amendment for that adjusted amount. But we rounded up to the $115,000 in hopes that we're actually under that. So the 115 will cover not just the plumbing part, but tearing up of the concrete, replace the tile, the asphalt, all of that to the street. It's not just the plumbing that's incorporated in that.
All right, thank you.
Good question. Any other discussion on this? Okay, let's move on to one that is a little bit more fun. We actually have a veterinarian who wants to take the position on Joint Animal Service Commission. Sarah, why don't you take it away?
Absolutely. So Joint Animal Services, part of our interlocal agreement stipulates that we have an appointed veterinarian sit on this commission. It's deemed a veterinarian that either works or lives in Thurston County. We have had a wonderful candidate come forward, Dr. Victoria Smith, also known as Vicki Smith. She has worked at several local clinics. She has also worked at Tacoma Pierce Humane Society and she has a master's in forensic veterinary medicine. And she is very committed to seeing Joint Animal Services move forward with their strategic plan and everything that we have set forth. So I, as well as Joint Animal Services, is recommending that JASCOM approve Dr. Smith be appointed to the Joint Animal Services Commission.
What about our 2 resident doctors? What are we gonna-
They don't count,
Well,
unfortunately.
no, but I mean, their recommendation would certainly count, you know?
It does.
Oh, okay.
I know
Well-
for a fact, Dr. Murphy and Lisa and Joe all know Dr. Smith.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend her. Her experience, I first met her at the Tacoma shelter, and then we had the opportunity to work together for quite some time. She's a stellar doctor, and plus I think she really understands the world you all live in here. Be a great selection.
I have to second what Mike is saying. She's just fantastic. I've dealt with her since I moved to town over 13 years ago. And not only that, but she has this passion for shelter medicine and animals. And we didn't mention she's a lieutenant colonel in the reserves. So she's also pretty important in that aspect in terms of the military veterinary world. And she's just very organized, very passionate. And she showed up at the Point in Time Connection, was it last week, and was helping with low income, no income families to get their pets vaccines and minor work done. And she just volunteered for the afternoon with us. Just can't say enough good about her.
Sounds good to me.
Great.
So
Um,
I'm asking for a move, I guess. Or a
yes,
move.
let's get a motion.
Motion, yes. I'm recommending any action take place. I am sorry, guys. It's been.
Can we look at a resume? I mean, can we just kind of
It's
think
in-
about it?
It's in here.
So
I'm good.
moved.
I'll make the motion or move it, whatever.
I'll second the
So
motion.
move, so second.
Yep, got the first and second. Any more conversation? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of appointing Vicki Smith to the open veterinary position on the Joint Animal Service Commission, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Crickets. That's really what we want to hear. Is there anything else on the agenda? By the way, I do like the agenda, Shannon. I'm sorry I fumbled through it. I'm used to the flow, but I do like your new agenda.
I have one more item before we adjourn, and that's the happy bills.
Oh, yes, I love my happy tales.
Nacho.
There we go. So Nacho, who is formerly known as Larry, was actually a part of what we call our Working Cats program. So not quite community cat. These would be cats that are perhaps friendly, but a bit feisty, do not do well in an indoor environment. And so we recommend them to become working cats. So for barns, farms, breweries, wineries, you name it, they're out there, they have a job. Well, it turns out this little guy tested positive for FIV. And so the owners wrangled him inside, forced a little love on him, got him all the stuff that he needed. And turns out Nacho doesn't like being a working cat anymore. He quite likes being an indoor cat.
That's wonderful.
Indoor cat only, he says. So this is now Nacho former barn cat now.
Not Joe, a working cat anymore.
What was the HIV? What did you say? The
FIV, it's feline,
Infectious, right?
thank you. Thank you, Joe.
It's like humans, but it's for cats. Like
Yeah.
human AIDS, but it's just for.
It's very similar to HIV.
It's all taken care of now?
He will still have it, but the really great thing is it doesn't spread like veterinarians initially thought when it was first discovered. And so as long as he's not a bitey cat that wants to start fights and bite other cats, he's not a problem. So he lives with 4 other indoor cats as well as 4 huskies and enjoying the sweet life.
Cool.
And looks like he has a Buddha belly too in that one picture.
Yeah.
He's gotten comfortable. I'm
Like
glad you
Dr.
stopped
Joe.
me for that. The happy tales, I take it back to council because at least I could get smiles during the meeting about my happy tales. Okay, now is there anything else for the good of the order? Thank you, Sarah.
Just something maybe I glossed over it. I see on the agenda, we had public comment. Did we ask for public comment or?
We did,
Did we? Okay.
and nobody signed up to give
Well,
public
doesn't hurt
comment.
my feelings. That's great. Nope. Thank you for making it a very enjoyable meeting for me, for my first meeting. Thank you.
You'll like this, Gary. It's animals. Everybody likes animals.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, welcome the 2 new members, and then we'll be welcoming a 3rd new member with Vicky at the next month's meeting, correct?
Correct.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you in a month.
Have a good
Thank
month.
you.